Thank you for taking the time to consider our proposal to restore the Tilden Seminary to its intended purpose under the new Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights on the premises of the seminary. The intent of the seminary from Tilden himself was for a faith-based purpose. It was a finishing school. Today we would describe it as a professional school. My intent is to develop a professional school, with, middle-aged professionals seeking higher education in public health, in education, and medicine, which are my areas of specialty. I hope that this fits directly into the West Lebanon plan, and I think it restores the institution. It's such an important institution right in the center of West Lebanon Business District, and historic, that's basically misoccupied, where it's not being used for a faith seminary purpose. It's not being used for a professional school. You can imagine my graduates walking across the stage each spring, and pulling like a sword out of a block of ice. We're going to, generate knights in public health, in healthcare, and in medicine. In the tradition of Sir Henry Vaughan, who's an ancestor of my mother's. Sir Henry Vaughan is a very special American. He was the fifth elected governor of the Bay Colony. We here in West Lebanon were part of the Bay Colony. We were an upper extent of it. He founded a new college in the tradition of Henry II that we now know as Cambridge University. The town of Cambridge, Massachusetts was named with that intent. And he was the founder of Harvard University in 1636, where he passed the law as governor to fund a new college in America, where we were lacking in English university. He went on to found Rhode Island. He also was a founder of calculus, a generation before Isaac Newton, where he modernized the British Navy, as we'd call it today. It's difficult to imagine the 17th century where the Americas were really ruled by the Dutch. And the Dutch West India Company had a base in Albany and a base in New Amsterdam, where they basically farmed and harvested us, which is why so many of our ancestors were poor until the American Revolution, when we broke free of the Dutch and broke free of the British. Sir Henry Vaughan embodies everything that is American and everything that is great, and everything of chivalry and for professionals. And that's our intent. Kent English is the tradition, where Kent is the doctrine. That's Imperial England, where we intend to make West Lebanon a professional center for training folks in public health, in medicine, whether they be governors or senators, or physicians that are wanting to learn an administrative specialty. That happens to be my area of expertise. We know that the downtown West Lebanon is intended to be a vibrant village. That comes right out of our plan. We think that adding a professional university right into the center of West Lebanon is core to that strategy. A lot of West Lebanon is unoccupied or underoccupied. Something that's easily solved by healthcare, public healthcare, physician professional students at that seminary. The intent of that seminary was to be a school of, folks in doctrine. And, that doctrine is very simple. It's the ancient Hippocrates, which, meant superior in horses, is the shepherd's oath of doing no harm that every physician takes in America. And that, that's our intention in the Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights, is to evangelize Hippocrates beyond medicine into public health, into public administration, and into leadership, where we think that it's missing. And we want you to join us in that mission where we're at a crossroads, in America, where we don't have a Hippocrates faith at the highest level in leadership, in the United States cabinet, not in United States governor's offices, where they are not oathed to do no harm to their residents. We think that that is part of an ancient movement. It happens to be a movement that huge proportions of Americans and Granite Staters agree with. This crossroads that we're at in America can be solved right at the crossroads in West Lebanon Central Business District. Is a place where residents and visitors can work, meet, shop, and share in good quality of life with a firm sense of community and belonging as part of this Hippocratic oath, this most Homo sapien of oaths, this most Homo sapien of movements, this most Granite State of movements, where again it'd be a professional school for fully formed adults, which was the intent of the Tilden Seminary in a different era where we didn't educate people into their professional careers. Our hope at the Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights is to promote and enhance downtown West Lebanon as a historic center and offer a small town atmosphere, serving the commercial, service, and recreational needs of residents and surrounding neighborhoods. Our neighbor town to the north happens to have a medical school. This would be adding a professional school above the degree of medical doctor. There's a public health professional. There's a specialized professional degree, which positions us well. And again, with the physiology and public health sciences, which relate to everybody. And we want you to be a part of that. We think that it fits into the West Lebanon character. We think it fits into the commercial and recreational needs of residents in the surrounding neighborhoods. We think it's going to engage in traffic calming, having professionals that live in the community, study in the community, is going to involve a significant amount of traffic calming. You're not going to have people trying to commute in and out of town. You'll have a more pedestrian group of professionals that we know as shoppers in West Lebanon downtown, right adjacent to the Central Business District. That was part of what made West Lebanon Central District was the Tilden Seminary students and faculty shopping and living downtown, which is something that you don't see. I live, in Seminary Hill, and you don't see individuals walk past their car at Tilden Seminary and walk down to West Lebanon Central Business District because, they're not part of the West Lebanon Central Business District. They're employees of the school district, which is good, and we love them, and we wish them well. Tilden did donate his funds for a seminary. Those are donor-restricted funds. America has very stringent rules for fund accounting, where, public school administrators, custodians can't office in a seminary. They're not priests. They're not a part of a faith-based movement. Again, we're a multi-denominational faith. And Kent English is part of the Hippocratic movement. It's the broadest movement, in the English-speaking world. The most highly approved. And we think that restoring the seminary as a seminary, as part of Kent English, the Hippocratic movement, superior in horses, and Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights, who's a knight himself. It's a little-known story that America had knights, and those knights are professionals trained in the medical science profession, trained in public health, trained in administration and leadership. And that's our vision for the Tilden Seminary campus. We know that it'll be central to downtown revitalization, where it won't just be a linear village, where you'll have some horizontal movement of people walking to work, walking to study, that are professionals, that are from here, people that are going to walk and shop in institutions downtown, which downtown existed because of this gem having students and having faculty at the Tilden Seminary. It's the most traditional strategy for us for development to maintain that small town feel. The answer to the old small town feel is looking at the old small town development pattern. The village's, looking at the town plan, the village's historical fabric has experienced fraying over the last half century and even longer. The key to that fraying in West Lebanon is that we shut down the seminary and we don't have a thriving student base in that seminary. It's administrators, and it's closed to the community, inherently closed, instead of a welcoming gateway to the community, of which is in the strategic plan. And the intent is for the West Lebanon Business District to be a gateway, like into New Hampshire, a gateway into West Lebanon, a gateway into the 21st century. And we think, the professions of public health, medicine, and leadership with this new generation of knights in the old Kent English tradition is going to be the old small town tradition to bring back, to build the new West Lebanon small town feel. Our forecast for students in the first year is 24. That fits right into the historic census numbers. Our intent is to grow from there. We are open for West Lebanon residents, folks that grew up in West Lebanon, folks that grew up in the Upper Valley, which that was the intent of, Sir Henry Vane coming to America, was, spreading, the Kent English tradition, spreading, what was the University of Cambridge, and, founded by Henry II. And he evangelized that in a new college called Harvard University. We think they did okay. We think that we can do better by skipping the undergraduate program and jumping straight to a professional program and training, a new generation of knights right here in West Lebanon that fits right into the small town feel. Fits right into the West Lebanon plan. We think that it'll repair the fabric of West Lebanon, where the disappointment that the city council has had with occupancy in West Lebanon, and the disappointment that the city council has had for occupancy in downtown West Lebanon, can be resolved by the old development pattern of professionals at the seminary. And, it's like a secular seminary, like we're not, like it's the broad movement as part of the Hippocratic movement. But it is entirely consistent with the donor's intent. We think that the City Council has underscored ample opportunities to redevelop the single-use sites within the district of higher density mixed-use projects, including traffic calming, right in West Lebanon downtown. There's no better way to do that than having professionals joining a profession, joining an alumni association, joining a movement, joining the Hippocratic movement. There will be need not just for services, but additional buildings in the future as we grow. And our intent is to grow. Our intent is to grow with the town. Our intent is, for us to see, be seen as the, number one project for downtown revitalization in West Lebanon by the city council. We know that it's the one thing that'll satisfy all the city council people, because the seminary was the reason that there was a West Lebanon town, is the pedestrian traffic to and from the seminary, to and from the students, to and from the faculty. There simply isn't a second or better development solution that'll maintain the character, the great tradition of excellence that we have in West Lebanon. There's opportunity for the Dana House to be better remembered and better utilized as part of that tradition. Where right now it's an expense without a vision forward. We know that the Dana House is part of the Kent tradition, was part of spreading the Hippocratic movement in the New World. We know that it was a outpost. We know that it was used during the Revolution by the Continental Army. We know that the knights that came in the American Revolution would tie their horses up at Dana House. We know that's consistent with our movement, with what we're trying to do at the Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights. And we know we can help restore Dana House to its former glory. Which I'd add, contemporary architects have scarred the Dana House by putting skylights in there because the second floor was dark. And that choice was an expense that is, an embarrassing architectural scar on West Lebanon, where the upscale tradition of development in the Kent English tradition would be to mansard that roof, more of an English-style mansard or a French-style mansard. I happen to be studied in architecture. If you drive past, Dana House, take a look at the roof line and look at how much more remarkable that would have been if it had an abled knight that had training in architecture to have that, mansard, and having mansard windows that fit the theme of the building and update it in a way that's tasteful and tell its story. Because, with skylights, you're taking a perfectly good roof and cutting a hole in it, which, very few carpenters will recommend in the long haul. And that's a building that's going to be there for a long time. And those are issues that I know that I can be a good steward of for West Lebanon, to make sure that missteps like that are not made again in the future, because it could have had a second level with mansard windows, that would have been classy and an asset to the neighborhood, and would have added to the small town feel, and could have been a motif that people in the neighborhood could have noted and repeated, because mansard roofs are a great choice for New England homes that have an attic, design-wise. If you look at the beauty of mansard roofs, just on the issue of downtown revitalization, there's very few things that revitalize the downtown like a repeated motif in an architectural style that's suggested and maybe not mandated, but it takes us to lead. Looking at the existing conditions again of West Lebanon Central Business District, it is 50 acres along Main Street from Seminary Hill, which, it begins and ends at Seminary Hill. Seminary Hill is not has been ignored as part of the plans for West Lebanon. There are developers that have looked at the north end of town, which is going to add to traffic congestion. It's going to add people that don't work here, that are not part of the pedestrian tradition in West Lebanon downtown, that don't get their hair cut in downtown, that don't have their services met in downtown, which is the intent, is having highly occupied, thriving, small town West Lebanon where people are welcome to come and join us, but the seminary's been that anchor. Even in our own town plan, Seminary Hill is the beginning of the description of what West Lebanon is, that extends just north of Bridge Street. And so looking at Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights right here on Seminary Hill is central to the development plan in restoring the small town feel. The pattern of commercial development within this area is primarily linear. That can be alleviated by people that actually want to live here and want to move here and want to go to professional school here, in a high elite tradition that, again, we invite. We're enrolling students now. We invite members of the community to join us as part of that Kent English tradition. We know that the development pattern can be not just linear, but you can have horizontal development, like down the streets, like down Elm Street, can include pedestrian, faculty and students, rather than having, which it happens to be traveled heavily by trucks and is safe for professionals. It's less safe for youth. If you've ever spent time on Elm Street, if you look at other development options for the site, it really isn't a safe place for children to be dropped off. It's one of the heavier truck corridors in the whole city. And so adding a professional corridor makes sense, as part of meeting the existing conditions and trends. We're not asking for there to be a major change in the pattern of, commercial development. In fact, it would be people that, live and walk nearby, that intend to stay and to, intend to reinvest in the community. The city council points to, related services for local residents. And we think that adding professional students is part of that solution, where they will look to the local community for services. And, walking, right down Main Street, you do notice that there are a lot of businesses. You rarely watch people walk down the sidewalk and go in. That's the development pattern that is the small town feel that you're looking for. That's the option that we're able to offer at Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights. The city council points to that there are central lots that continue to be vacant or underutilized, despite CBDs in place and infrastructure and available services. We think that is going to be addressed in part by our ability to grow into the economy and occupy those unutilized buildings over time. And that's where those buildings came from, was, that the origin of that was serving seminary students and faculty and the next of kin neighborhood, the next tier, next order of neighborhood, which provides a cost-effective environment for businesses to locate and grow. The city rezoned this 30-acre area north of the existing CBD, located between the Connecticut River and North Main Street in 2010. And like we said, there was an approval for a mixed-use project in that area, including life sciences office and research space. We think that our offering is fits with that vision of adding a life sciences office space, adding research space. We know that there's opportunity for synergy and otherwise, to have more of a life sciences, medical sciences corridor, which more meets the needs of the existing residents. The economic development Opportunity we think is significant. These are folks, that may use our local banks, may use our local schools, um, and may have professional jobs already, and may go on to be governors of U.S. states, may go on to be senators of states, and instead of having every 4 years you know the country look to us and the Granite State, as the first to decide, and then going away and not listening to us, it'd be an opportunity for us to capitalize and keep a small group of people here and train them on our way and indoctrinate them in Kent English and make sure that they know, where they came from and to be loyal to us. Because I think that that's an incredible part of the Granite State tradition is, our control and dominance of American politics. I think that's an incredible area of pride for all of us as Granite Staters. That I know that this elite college of knights can satisfy in the seminary. So we think, in summary, it's part of the economic development vision of the city. It's safe, healthy working conditions. In fact, these are the professionals that provide for safe, healthy working conditions. Health and medicine are the rewarding careers and employment opportunities that the city council is referring to in the economic development plan. In accordance with the residents first policy, we know that this is a way for us to have West Lebanon residents trained in the best fields, in the best tradition, to choose to stay here, to return to us as faculty in a way that benefits all of our residents and meets the economic development goals of the town. And we know that there's a lot of Upper Valley and West Lebanon folks that choose to leave New Hampshire and not come back after high school. There's a good proportion that go off to college. There's a good proportion that go off to college and do well. There's a very small proportion that have the ability to come back to West Lebanon. And this is one of those opportunities, for those of you that have a college graduate that's looking at different professional programs, that instead of going into a profession like law, where there's 4 tiers of law schools, and the outcomes in that 4th tier of law is so poor that they end up saddled in a huge amount of debt. We're offering an option to train the best and brightest for the nation in the Sir Vane tradition, which he had a tradition of calculus, of building a ship that was shapeless, that didn't lag, didn't slag as it went through the water. And that is the British Navy that conquered the Dutch. It's the British Navy that the sun never sat on. It's the British Navy that America inherited. It's, it was known as the English Navy phonetically, and it became what's now America's Navy with, 11 aircraft carriers where we dominate the world. We think that that tradition of math and calculus translates well into professionals. We think that the tradition of providing a higher title to students with a higher level of training is going to differentiate them in the market. We invite graduates of West Lebanon High School and residents to join us really after undergrad. It's really a professional school for adult professionals. But we know that that'll help encourage and attract enterprises to contribute to the welfare of the city of West Lebanon. As you're looking for long-term care administrators, that's something that our folks are able to do. They'd be trained in. They'd be trained in leadership for those, which there's there's one right in the neighborhood, in the Westboro House, which is it's a site that our graduates could rotate through and learn, teach, contribute. It's one that can rotate through our firehouses and learn, teach, and contribute. My grandfather, Frank Batulis, is a very important figure who happened to have been the chief quality inspector at American La France, where he invented the modern fire truck. Is the modern paramedic movement, the modern paramedicine movement. That's something that I feel very passionate about. Elsewhere in America, I've helped build community paramedic programs where paramedics are able to care for people in the community with input from their physician. And instead of going to Westboro House in an ambulance on a 911 call, to check in with those residents and make sure that they're see what's in their cabinet, to see what food they're eating, to see that they're taking their medications. And that community paramedic program has been successful elsewhere in the country. It's something that's part of our Kent English tradition of having a hierarchy of professions underneath physicians as part of that Hippocratic movement. And we know that we simply haven't articulated a curriculum and path for community paramedics. We know that that's something that takes our strength. We know that our fire departments are strength. Our paramedics are our strength. We can't recognize them enough. They're part of that Kent tradition. Happens to be part of my family tradition, where we built the modern fire truck that was the American La France 1957 with the life-saving quint that had everything on it that could get there safely and put the fire out without hurting anybody. That was, if you go to a museum of fire trucks, you'll see all of the American La France fire trucks. They go back to 1830. And he put out the 1957, where he had to build a V12 engine from scratch. And that tradition of manufacturing and quality is something that my family's done. My father was an engineer. He exported products to Sweden. And again, we'd be professionals that'd be doing, occupational health training, occupational health injury prevention, occupational health care for people in our community. That's what we'd be training our graduates to do. I happen to have worked on the workers' compensation care plan in New Hampshire, where I helped lobby the state for injured workers, and also for what is a national milestone, which was the Concord Orthopedics Acute Injury Clinic, which I was the chief operating officer. I happened to be 10 years ago. They did a national search for their chief operating officer and chose me. I'm blessed and honored to be a part of that tradition. It's one of the best private orthopedic groups in America. And I built the acute injury clinic so that the injury worker can be seen today and have a chance at getting back to work today, which is good for the worker. It's good for the employer. In the Upper Valley, not everybody knows that instead of waiting 3 days, 3 weeks, or 6 weeks, depending on the specialty, to be seen, or to blow a fortune of the city's money in the emergency room, that you can actually go to Concord Orthopedics and be seen today. Where we offered in Concord, in Derry, and just opened in Londonderry, an acute injury clinic with orthopedics reading the x-ray, which is the specialty. It's the top specialty. So you're skipping the hospital bill. You're skipping the urgent care provider that doesn't know orthopedics or could make errors on orthopedics to provide the highest quality. And so this is a resident's first economic development plan, where we'd be graduating folks, in that tradition of, the tradition of paramedicine, of paramedics, of Kent English, of community paramedics, of acute injury clinics, so workers get seen today, so employers get their employees back today. And I have not, worked with stakeholders to look at adding such a clinic in the Upper Valley. That's something that is a logical possibility. That's something that I've done all over America, working with orthopedic groups. With my company, where I serve physicians all over America, largely in small towns like ours, like Tahoe, like Colorado Springs, like Anchorage, that like their small town feel, like their American feel. The other goals that the towns describe for economic development are having a high quality of life for those that live or work in our community or city. This is the specialty of people that provide higher quality of life. If you can get seen for an injury at work today and get back today on the day that you need it, that improves quality. That improves quality of life. Implementing economic development that did not result in greater tax burden. We know that healthcare spending is 20% of America's spending. My College of Knights is literally the only thing that decreases the cost of healthcare in America. That's been my specialty. I challenge you to look at your expense for the city. I'd be happy to sit with you and look at what the insured employee expense is for West Lebanon. That happens to be one of my areas of expertise. And compare to how we can help that be managed so that injuries are managed today, care is delivered today, so that chronic illness is managed routinely, so that a proportion of even city employees could qualify for the community paramedic program, to be visited on a 3-week basis, on a 6-week basis, on a 3-month basis, on a 6-month basis, based on their chronic disease, the constellation of chronic disease they have, under their physician's order, in cooperation with their physician, but offering a service to the community. So instead of getting the 911 calls, of which 911 was more or less founded by American LaFrance putting out a fire truck that could get there on time, we'd be able to send folks before that 911 call is needed. Before the cost is incurred. That's a lot of what we do at the Rhode Island College of Knights. We know that helps meet the goal of economic development in the city without adding greater tax burden. In fact, I challenge us that I'd likely be able to help decrease many of the health expenses for the town. By taking a look at those expenses, we can build that relationship over time so that you're able to access our faculty at Rhode Island College of Knights and our students, that are professionals at the top of the field, to get the best eyes, the best analysis, and the best recommendations to work with physicians to better care for our city employees, to better work for our town residents, and our community at large. The town points to adopting land use policies that encourage redevelopment of existing non-residential sites. The seminary is the crown jewel of land use that is redevelopment of an existing non-residential site. The seminary is the crown jewel non-residential site. We intend to develop that as it was intended. They were donor-designated funds. That happens to be a very serious part of your consideration, is that Rhode Island College of Knights is a Kent tradition, the Hippocratic tradition, Superior and Horses tradition. We are, a faith-based tradition, organization that believes in doing no harm, in caring for others. We believe in the Kent tradition, in the Rhode Island tradition, in the tradition of calculus, in math, and in medicine and public health. We want you to join that. We want you to, be evangelizers of our mission and vision. We want to grow with the city. We want the land use and the redevelopment of the Tilden Seminary to be the Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights. We want to teach in the Tilden seminary. We want to graduate our students there. We want to invite the community for ceremony there. We want our graduates to be involved in programs sanctioned by the town, sanctioned like in the wisdom of each of you, the city council folks, that help improve the quality of life. and help decrease the cost of the town. And it's so useful to be able to have, our own college of knights that's able to grow and learn with us between city council meetings, so that data, math, calculus can be brought to bear on questions, on agenda items, particularly in planning, economic development, that have a health and human services component, where you'd be getting the best trained, best qualified folks. I know the CEOs and practice administrators that I have worked with are the best in the whole country, and be the likely new students that we'd be pulling in, and it'd be part of a land use policy that meets your goals of redevelopment the existing non-residential sites, existing land zoned, for non-residential use, before developing any additional lands. And there's already the decision to do some land development on the north side of West Lebanon. We intend to offer, for economic development, a College of Knights that's help stimulate the city, help stimulate the town, that can help make us healthier, make us happier, and we can, as our student base grows, we can offer, residential options that, as part of, Manor One, of which, we have a Manor One program that we've recommended with our physicians, where when you add health professionals, they might have some higher demands for health, for public health, for hygiene in their home, where caregivers are very public health conscious, and there'd be opportunity for us to develop the community, and as we look at new residential development, to consider the area of public health, which is something that folks in the real estate profession and development profession happen to not have a medical science training in. I'm a peer-reviewed medical scientist. I'm a biochemist. I'm a pharmacologist. I happen to be an addiction scientist. I happen to be one of the better addiction scientists in America. And so one of the things that we do is be able to offer housing, for drug-free people, for healthy people, that's hygienic for healthcare professionals, which with COVID-19 and other conditions, it happens to be important. So our Manor One program includes, strategies for reducing candida, which is a yeast. 75% of women get candida at some point in their life. 6% of newborns are born with candida. We know the Manor One program, the development approach, is the best strategy for reducing candida. One of the second pathogens is salmonella. Salmonella is a bacteria that the U.S. Department of Agriculture has fought, through inspecting our food supply. It traces back to one of ours in the Kent English tradition, that was Dr. Salmon, is named after him. He was a veterinary surgeon. He was a Kent English style veterinary surgeon that learned how to train. He learned surgery by doing surgery on horses in the old style, the old Kent English style, and the old Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights style. And that's the origin of our understanding of salmonella. Was one of our Hippocratic pioneers, of which his work has been at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We know the Manor One development philosophy has been successful in residential communities for preventing infection of salmonella and E. coli, which is the third key pathogen that infects our whole population with such high frequency and duration that people hardly notice it, but it complicates people's medical conditions. And that's part of our Manor One philosophy is approaches in design, approaches in development, not just management through the Suriname College of Knights, but a Manor One approach for how you develop and redevelop housing that mitigates Candida, Salmonella, E. coli, of which are endemic in our population we hardly talk about. But that's a way that we can help economically develop folks is people having fewer sick days, including those in the town, including those that worked for the city. We'd evangelize that through our Manor One development approach, of which, as our college grows, we'd like to offer options that are public health minded, public health first, resident first, consistent with what the city council has intended. Another goal for the city council has been maintaining the infrastructure needed to support economic development at high service levels, including fostering state-of-the-art communication infrastructure throughout the city. And we're part of that movement with you. We've had a remote connection to our clients, to my physician clients all over America, going back to 2012, where I've been helping manage physician groups remotely since 2012. I did it professionally as a W-2 employee, going back, for physicians to 2010, for hospitals back to 2008. Where I worked in very high infrastructure projects for hospitals, for communities, which included Kaiser Permanente, who's one of the largest healthcare providers in America, had asked to have a single payer option in California. And I happened to have been the consultant that was able to consolidate all of their hospital fee schedules down to one fee schedule, which is the closest thing that we've had to a single payer system. You just have to get rid of the other competitors in the marketplace. But that's something that I'd be willing to do, for, infrastructure here in the Upper Valley, where there's a limited number of players. And it's possible, for example, that those players have different fee schedules, even inside, to be precise, inside the same company, and are charging you more, to go to a facility on one side of town than they are for the other side of town. Americans don't tend to not think that's right. Americans tend to think that there should be one price from a company. I've been a part of that infrastructure and economic development at very high service levels elsewhere, including California, which I did largely remote. Like, I flew out there. Encouraging new non-residential construction renovation, over time, in a stepwise fashion, as our College of Knights is growing, we'll bring proposals that we think will be attractive. Professional students, individuals, in their 40s and 30s are, fit really the development profile of what the town is looking for. People that might have families. And so we'd like to be able to provide those, non-residential construction renovation options as our movement evolves, including as you look at firehouse development, looking at how to tap into that community paramedic tradition for Kent English, which is something that we can lead the whole country on in paramedicine, of trying to, reduce 911 calls through a systematic management approach. That's something I've done elsewhere. I'd be willing to do that as part of this proposal or a separate one. But it'd be part of that non-residential construction and development of what are the things that you need in the firehouse if the firehouse isn't just there to answer the 911 call, but to reduce the 911 calls. And there's some truly inspired opportunities that are not necessarily expensive, that are not necessarily what my grandfather was selling 1,400 fire trucks a year, dealt with almost every fire marshal in America, almost every fire chief in America. And so the movement would be not just a fire marshal approach of trying to reduce fire, but a paramedic chief that's trying to reduce emergency calls. Some of that includes chronic disease management. And again, we know that the community has a problem, for example, for narcotics diversion. That's my area of specialty. I built the algorithm at Cardinal Health that is used for the pharmacy wholesaler in Ohio to distribute painkillers to the community. I developed that algorithm back in 2008 in cooperation with the New York Attorney General's office, which is a very successful project in reducing diversion of narcotics. If you look back, you'll see that Cardinal Health was entirely shut down and needed a diversion prevention expert. That happens to be what I've done professionally. It's a boutique specialty that is there's a lot of work. It happens to be all over America. It's part of what I've done. We'd be willing to help do that in West Lebanon, and even help build a career ladder so that West Lebanon police officers have a career ladder in making detective for preventing narcotics diversion. Which as a resident, of which I live right here in Seminary Hill, as a resident, my observation is that our officers, our good guys in blue, don't have a detective path for reducing the narcotics diversion that comes into our community. And we don't necessarily have a shortage of patrol officers, but a shortage of the detective career ladder with the public health training, of which we'd be happy to help. I'd be happy to help, as part of the Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights, to work with how to educate a patrol officer in doing diversion prevention. 40% of the prescribed painkillers in America go through an algorithm that I created back in 2008, which is one of the most successful battles in the war on drugs that was ever won. We know that that is one of the best economic development opportunities, because when you look at public health statistics, New Hampshire painkiller prescriptions are 3 times higher than states like Minnesota. In New Hampshire, we have very high expectations for our elected officials. We have very high standards, for the outcomes and in our towns, in our communities, and in our state. And we know that if 2 out of 3 prescriptions are unnecessary, that's a law enforcement function that requires a detective, that requires public health, that requires medical science to help train that patrol officer on how to identify unusual frequency and unusual duration of prescribing, and pharmacy fill rate, of which the work I've done elsewhere has been largely with physicians. I've been a part of this movement of Kent English, where we work right with surgeons putting new hips and knees on people, which is part of this movement in like the anterior hip replacement. Where since 2008, my profession has found a way, miraculously, to put new hips and knees on people. And I was one of those people that was passionate and righteous and said that, a hip replacement patient can receive the hip replacement without having any narcotics prescribed at all, without having any painkillers prescribed at all. I've embodied that all over America. There are such programs where you're able to get your hip replaced without any painkillers used, and the patients literally wag their tail, get off the table, and walk home instead of spending days and days in the hospital. And that's one of the things that helps our economic development, is reducing one of our weaknesses. And that's something we're willing to work with the town on. We're willing to work not just in developing the community paramedic program, but in developing a detective program that does prescription diversion prevention, which has very key police functions that my observation is that are probably not there for our patrol officers to, have that career development opportunity and to add that contribution to the community. We know that that's something that residents and taxpayers will pay for, is the police function, the old-time Kent English function of diversion prevention, which ends up, including going to CVS and showing, give me 3 years of data on your painkillers. Let me see the volume and the frequency of those orders. That's our data. That's our people's data. We want a police function there to make sure that, because our data says that 2 out of 3 pills that are filled in that pharmacy might be unnecessary. And so, we want the data for that. Now, there's a process for getting that data, which is part of that function that we've done elsewhere in America, including with the New York Attorney General's office, which, you'll see that they've continued to tighten the diversion prevention controls at Cardinal Health. Again, something that, I've done work going back 15 years, including, auditing individual physicians, which is part of that economic development opportunity of reducing our community's reliance on painkillers, reducing our community's reliance on narcotics. Looking at the, city master plan, for housing, the city of Lebanon shall actively foster a diverse range of housing options and choice. Like I described, we, as Knights, we are involved in architecture. I've been involved in dozens of medical clinic development opportunities all over America, surgery center development all over America, acute injury clinics all over America, hospitals all over America. And the design of matching the town feel in those developments is a personal area of pride of me, for me. I think that that's really important to honor the tradition of the community. That's why I made the point about the Dana house earlier, is that, we took the time to put a skylight and cut a perfectly good hole in a perfectly good roof to put a skylight. When the Kent tradition, if you ask Sir Vane, who's, one of the forefathers, one of the founders of America, the guy that founded Harvard University, the guy that founded Rhode Island, the guy that, was the 5th governor of the Bay Colony. What do you put on that second floor in a house if it's too dark? You'd say, well, you do a mansard roof. It's a Kent English tradition that some people associate with French as well, but it's a mansard tradition. And that happens to be one of the things that spreads, diversity, choice, in aesthetics, because the style of downtown is one of the things that people are looking for in a downtown. And a tasteful addition, we think, is ultimately more successful. And, repeating a motif in the architectural design of the, Kent English, Dana house tradition. Again, it's something that we think is important. And so promoting, development of diverse, sustainable neighborhoods that reflect small Lebanon's small town character, the Kent English tradition of, what do you do with that attic? A mansard roof option is a better option than cutting a hole. It's better aesthetically. There's some risks that come with it. but it happens to be safer. It's a, you get a window. It's a way out in the event of a fire. You're getting the sunlight, and all the UVA, UVB benefits of getting sunlight into that dwelling, which is, as nature's disinfectant. And that adds an, distinctive charm to our, small town feel in West Lebanon. And so, we'd like to, through Manor One, we'd like to be a part of that small town character and distinctiveness of looking to the Kent English tradition, not just in our historic buildings, but in our neighborhoods, and offer those segments to our, population of students and faculty, which, we're starting with, we think 24 students in our inaugural year, and faculty, which, there are, those of you in city council may, have opportunity, to be a lecturer with us, on an area of interest of yours. And, having a two-way relationship with the town is something that we recognize has been successful in other professional finishing school institutions. Kent English is a very open and inviting, the Hippocratic movement is open to every one of you to join us. And you'll almost never do wrong if, when you look at an agenda item, to say, how do we do no harm? So we want to be part of those Manor One housing options, not just for our students, but for the community, because public health and style move in two directions. And, we have a tradition of building clinics, hospitals, acute injury clinics, redeveloping from the existing in a way that makes a lot of public health sense, makes medical sense. Makes sense, in the firehouse, and developing, the new, diversion prevention, detective function in the town, which I think is an important part of our, having livable neighborhoods. Because if you go down to the gas station, in town, you're not always moved. The city councilman might not be moved by what signs of entropy you might get from an individual that's passing through town that looks, semi-homeless, that looks like they might have, and demographically, we know there's people in our community that, are part of the diversion problem. And how, what button do you push? It happens to be having that detective function of finding out how the prescriptions, how 2 out of 3 prescriptions originating from many of the, doctors in our community are too high compared to benchmarks elsewhere in the country, and training the police force in how to detect and police that with integrity in a way that you guys all end up with the best reputation, that we all, our town has pride and dignity in what we do. And it's part of, Manor One, we're a drug-free population. That's part of the Kent English movement. The community facilities and services, if you look through the master plan, the seminary happens to be absent as an asset, happens to be absent as an opportunity. The high-paying professional jobs in healthcare, in public health, happen to be absent in the economic development vision for city residents, for City First. The programs that do that are elsewhere in the country. My training happens to be from the best Masters of Healthcare Administration program in America. So, we want to be able to use the Tilden community facility, the Tilden community service, the Tilden community assets to redevelop our community for the 21st, century economy of public health, physiology, in Kent English. on preparing our community for paramedicine, community paramedicine, on preparing our community for long-term care, and for healthy working populations, including the town's working population, the residents' working population, those employees of the city inclusive, which we want to be part of that movement of containing medical costs for West Lebanon itself. We want to be part of that movement for improving quality of life for West Lebanon itself. We want to be a part of reusing the Tilden facility for its intended purpose, which we know that constituents will look to a new seminary of knights and look to the opportunity for training and education, for our knights, for community paramedicine, as the crown jewel of the community and the crown jewel of development. And it's using that community resource and community facilities the way I have elsewhere in the country, right back here home. I happen to live right on Elm Street, right in Seminary Hill. Happen to be a passionate Granite Stater and a deep believer in what West Lebanon's about, what the Granite State's about, going all the way back to the Bay Colony, which is when we boldly looked at the Dutch, that had an imperial house in Albany and thought that they could control everything here. And we had that bold idea that we could build better ships than they could, and that's part of the community pride that we're looking for. Part of what Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights embodies is we can build public health ships better than anybody else in America, better than any other town community in New Hampshire. And that we think repurposing Tilden Seminary for that purpose is a huge win for the city council, is a huge win for the town of Lebanon, for the town of West Lebanon inclusive, in our town in a town, management philosophy. As you look in the town master plan, you see adopting land use policies that direct development towards existing building up to where city facilities and services are already available. We were lucky for Tilden, who is a magnet, to donate resources for a seminary in our community. And, over the last 50 years and more, we lost touch with his intent, his charitable intent, of which it wasn't intended to be an overflow office space. It was intended to be a finishing school for the best and brightest, for professionals, which in that era was different than this era. This era would be healthcare professionals, they're knights, best in America, best in the world. We know that we can help deliver that training. We know that that's the best use of that land. We know that that's a part of community pride that will be a bullet point. As every one of you thinks to re-up in your public administration career, potentially in your political career, you'll look to founding, being a part of our College of Knights as a seminary moment in your career that you'll be able to look to with pride. Something that improves the efficiency of city facilities and services, reducing the per capita demand on city facilities and services. We know that our College of Knights is able to help reduce 911 calls over time through our graduates, through our programs, through our partnership with the town. We know that our advanced study of public health will be useful on predicting residents that have primary care issues that can be managed more aggressively, including having paramedics go into the home and see what that person that maybe has diabetes and hypertension, to see what's in their cabinet, what food choices are being made, to make sure that there's nutrition education that's consistent with the physician's instructions. It's one of the benefits you get from community paramedicine. We know that reduces reduces 911 calls. We know that having a diversion prevention philosophy at the level of the pharmacy and at the level of the physician will reduce 911 calls. We know that if you can cut out 2 out of 3 of the painkiller prescriptions, that's going to cut your opioid diversion-related 911 calls by 66%, logically, and perhaps in total. We know that that's something that our graduates are able to provide, is reducing some of the unnecessary per capita demand. Having our students and perhaps in contract our faculty be able to be used to study what's the source of 911 calls that result in an emergency room visit. How many of those are preventable? What mechanism and function can the city have for recouping its costs on that? What good public policy can we go to our governor on? I happen to know that Chris Sununu is an open-minded individual. They would look for working people solutions for people that have needed 911 services to get better diabetes care. And if that means funding a community paramedic program, he's the sort of guy that'll help make sure that we're funded for that work, and that we don't just have that vision, but it helps revitalize the firehouse as an entity that's able to recoup its costs and care for the community better. That's something that we're willing to work with the town on at Serenity Vaughn College of Knights. Keeping city facilities and infrastructure in good condition and avoiding costly repairs results from deferred maintenance. That happens to be an area of public health. Made the point of Dana House, which is again something that I think I'm passionate about, is an important part of our heritage, and would like to under this proposal or another one, that the College of Knights can help be stewards of that and help tell the tradition, the Dana House tradition. I know that I had ancestors in the American Revolution. Thomas Stanage, George Whitford, Jonas the Great Batavian, who came and fought not just in militia but as U.S. Army Rangers, where my ancestors came in 1773, where we were Lithuanian knights. We came and we brought knights and artillery to help defend outposts like Dana House. Something that I think is a really important part of the story is the story of knights and kings. That Dana House was a institution worth defending and a location that had to be defended. In our tradition, it's part of the lattice of defense in the young nation. And would like to be part of telling the story of that and help curating the museum of that, because our Sir Henry Vaughan College of Knights is a local story of everyday people that arose to be U.S. Army Rangers, that arose to be United States Marine Corps, in what was an ancient tradition that was called Rangan. That's the caste of knight that worked from long range, that studied long range, that defended by long range, including artillery. And as you guys are looking for your continued long range planning and capital budgeting for upgrading the city, we want to be your Rangan. We want to be the knights that you look to. You here locally, in curating our local community assets and our local community traditions, including Dana House, which we think could be part of that proposal in curating the tradition of chivalry and knighthoods and good shepherding in America. Elsewhere, In another community, I am doing a tradition of shepherding in dairy and cheese to help communities, you know, be able to access and raise more vitamin D. Vitamin D is a necessary nutrient that doesn't appear broadly across lots of foods. And part of the tradition of providing vitamin D, particularly for those that work indoors and don't get a lot of sunlight, vitamin D happens to be very important, and we can help use Dana House as part of that, educating the community on shepherding, which is part of a town development strategy, on the outside of town in some of those lower development areas. You might choose some local herding options, some local developing options to revitalize the community with new kinds of cheese that have vitamin D. And those are good development options that keep a small town feel around the spoke, around the outskirts of town. You don't need to have herds in the core, but you might find that there's, residential one top, style communities where you can have a, ranching tradition of good shepherds. And we could have Dana House be again, a history of knights, a history of Rangan, a history of shepherding, and how Dana House was a critical fortification for West Lebanon, for New Hampshire, and for the this struggling thing, this young thing that was called America, this experiment we call America. Transportation. We know that Starting Vane College of Knights, are folks that are going to live here, are going to study here, are going to contribute here, and we're the development option that's not going to add congestion. As you look, you hardly ever see, one of the folks at Tilden Seminary walk down and shop at in West Lebanon town. And it has a very large, parking lot, of which, for large events, that's nice. But like it can be a College of Knights, a thriving, home-owned, Granite State owned, developed College of Knights in these public health professions and healthcare professions, which helps address our transportation issues. Because again, these aren't commuters. And so, in summary, we urge you to accept our proposal for the Starting Vane College of Knights. We think that the tradition of Starting Vane is the fifth governor of the Bay Colony, which included, all the way this far in, was a tradition of English knights, of chivalry, is part of the Hippocratic movement of doing no harm. That's part of, our mantra at Starting Vane College of Knights, is training, professionals, adult professionals, to help us put new hips and knees on people, demonstrably, which is what we've done all over America, in helping physicians put new hips and knees on people. It's something that, 15, 20 years ago, really didn't exist. There were hip replacements, but there was not, putting on a hip that was like new, where people could walk and go on and do full lives. And that's part of the movement and part of the mission that we're part of, is training the professionals, administrators, and the physicians, in putting new hips and knees on people, for working people, in a way that is low dose, non-dose, day surgery cases. And again, we're training folks to become those knights. And we want to be part of the West Lebanon development plan. We want to be part of the economic development plan. We want to be, the first bullet point, on, helping add data and add management skill and add public health skill to any areas in the city, budget for the town and for the residents, because we know that programs like the community paramedic program can be developed and cultivated over years and years, and be an incredible success, public health wise, in caring for people better and keeping people from showing up at the emergency room with a big hospital bill. Instead, the town is able to send a large number of medium-sized bills that get paid for community paramedicine, which that's part of the movement they've been a part of in other states. It just as an initiative, as an opportunity. Stony College Knights works with physicians directly, though, and helping put new hips and knees on people, working directly with hospitals and caring for populations better, working with primary care to keep people healthy. And we're willing to work with you on any one or more part of it that we described today as opportunities, as possibilities. But in summary, we think the Tilden Seminary is the crown jewel of town. We think that there is not a competing possibility that's going to provide a finishing school in this way that meets the small town feel and the small town goals that the town's described in its master plan. We know that it'll add a pedestrian tradition to downtown West Lebanon with professionals, that happen to be more sport coat styled individuals. We know that it'll help alleviate the occupancy issues in downtown West Lebanon. We know that it'll help feed the heritage of West Lebanon, where I'm passionate about the Kent English heritage, which that happens to be our doctrine. Kent English. We believe in the English liturgy. We believe in the English style. We believe in the mansard roof. We believe in repeating the motif. We believe in a beautified, downtown. Taxpayers, residents are offered options to beautify their community, to match motif, to become the best community in America. So please accept my thoughts and my proposal. And we'll be in touch at your convenience. We're going to do this here in New England. I have this attachment and have this belief that the Tilden Seminary happens to not be compliant in fund accounting, and it happens to be the best solution is restoring it as a seminary for public health knights, for a professional school. That grow up here, that learn here, that grow here, and give back here. Into the programs. You look at every expense line item in the city budget. How can the best healthcare professionals in America help contribute to West Lebanon? We're open to working with the town and having the town be the first beneficiary and experience the first fruits of our labor. We'll need your help. We'll need your help, identifying folks, perhaps, sponsoring folks that are from West Lebanon. They'd be good candidates for our program. We want to look at residents first. We know that that's part of the town's master plan. We think that the ideal profile for a student really is, West Lebanon, Upper Valley, graduated, college trained professional that has, some base of experience in one of our key healthcare professions. We would work with paramedics that are looking to learn more. We'd learn with we'd work with physicians that are learning to, that are interested in growing in administrative functions. One of our programs at Kent English is the Chief Resident program. There's chief residents that live right in our community. We're trying to reach them because chief residents have a very difficult job where they're helping appraise their peers. They're involved in scoping out jobs for their peers. They're involved in the health and wellness for their peers, the other residents. They're in training. And we have a chief resident program that helps physicians and Kent English professionals like us at the Rhode Island College of Knights make the decisions in guiding where residents are able to go, rather than having facilities, recruiters determine their fate. Recruiters, are like national firms from out of town that don't have healthcare training. They don't have a medical science training. They don't have a commitment to our community. And so, like, as you look at those residents, and some of you may know folks that are residents in our community or not, and those are folks that, we want to get in front of, that we want to be a part of that. We know that many of the residents, physician residents that live in our community are worth engaging, are worth being a part of our movement at Rhode Island College of Knights, and also, with the town. That's a very vibrant part of our community that, it's nice to have those individuals choose to stay, choose to start a practice with us. You can imagine downtown, having 2 or 3 new medical specialties after those physicians have the support, in nurturing, of us, at the Rhode Island College of Knights, that offer a local option, a local doctor, and are part of our movement for low-dose, non-dose, surgery, part of our movement for, putting new hips and knees on people, having independent orthopedists, having independent physiatrists, having independent internal medicine doctors. That inevitably will find that the lack of options, lack of mission in other providers is part of why there's over-prescribing painkillers. And so those are folks that we see, chief residents, we want to be involved in helping offer them the options of administrative development, offer options for what their career options would look like after residency, and offer them options to stay with us and, as a part of this mission, revitalizing West Lebanon. I can be reached by email. It's dbatulis@icloud.com. And I can also be reached by phone at 612-802-3116. Thank you very much.